The 2024 Lok Sabha elections produced one of the most fascinating verdicts in recent political history. The BJP-led NDA returned to power for a third consecutive term, but without a single party majority. The India bloc made significant gains, regional parties continued to shape outcomes, and state-level politics once again influenced the national verdict. But what really explains the 2024 mandate? Was it a national election or was it the sum of 28 different state elections? Why did BJP underperform? A new book, Lok Sabha Elections in India 2024, Mutual Embeddedness of State and National Politics, argues that India's electoral story can only be understood by looking at how national and state politics constantly shape each other. The book focuses on the middle perspective between local and Delhi-centric approach. The book brings together analytical essays from scholars across the country to decode the verdict state by state and explore the larger trends defining Indian democracy. Joining me now are the two editors, Professor K.C. Suri and Professor A.K. Verma, people who understand democracy, elections, and they know how to decode it. The book that they have published, which will officially be part of the, I would say, national narrative, would be available with the viewers, is something on which this conversation is based. So my first question right now, since the election is far and away, is something which the book raises in its preface. The middle perspective between the top-down and bottoms-up. Dr. Anil Verma, first to you, what is that middle perspective between the local and the national?
Thank you, Karthikeya, for inviting us to this show. And normally we have seen that most of the academic writings have either taken a national perspective, that means a centrally dominated perspective, or they have taken a perspective from the bottom down. Bottom-up approach they have taken, that every state they have tried to see the entire Lok Sabha election from the state's perspective only. So we were wondering whether they are the right approaches at all, or they are, myopic approaches. And we found, because Professor Suri and me have been working for decades together, and we found that these two approaches, they do not actually explain the diversity, the multicultural context in which the elections are held, the social heterogeneity that we have, the religious that we have, and so many varieties are there. And therefore, we thought that to understand this whole thing, why not take a new look at the electoral process at all, and why not understand the Lok Sabha elections in a perspective which is neither state-centric nor central-centric, or national-centric, but it is complementary to each other. And what we found finally, that yes, most of the states, they have been looking at the Lok Sabha elections from their own perspective, and that is how we take a middle position. Neither we are taking a bottom-up approach nor a top-down approach, and that's why we are placing ourselves in the middle position and trying to understand the complementarity of both the state and the national perspectives.
Okay. Professor Suri, before I really get into the nitty-gritties, the questions I have made, your opening comments in the book, did you think that that the 2024 elections were a surprise for many? Election results, sir?
Yeah. Thank you, Karthikeya, for having me on your channel. It was surprise for some. It was surprise for some, but it was not surprise for many. So the BJP was expecting that it would come back to power on its own. It was a surprise for the BJP in the sense that, as you said in the beginning, that it did not get majority on its own. And it was a surprise for the India bloc, because India bloc was also expecting that it would get a majority, because generally an incumbent party or incumbent alliance getting a third term is not very usual in electoral politics. So the India bloc people were expecting a kind of anti-incumbency, which did not happen. But I think on the whole, it was not really a surprise because the tendencies, the electoral and political tendencies that we have been witnessing over the last 2 decades, that is the decline of the Congress and the fragmentation of the regional parties and the bad state of regional parties in the country. I think all these factors are responsible for the kind of outcome that we saw in 2024. In that sense, it was not a surprise to me, at least.
Okay. Dr. Verma, now let's get through the chapters. Why didn't Ayodhya, which is a very big issue for BJP today, was a big matter of achievement then, fail to give them results in Uttar Pradesh?
Karthikeya, Uttar Pradesh has always been a very difficult state to read. And what my understanding of Uttar Pradesh is, and before I answer this question, I'll take you a little back to the studies that we made on the 2024 Lok Sabha election. Actually, we conducted two empirical studies, one pre-poll and the other post-poll. And we found that January to March, the studies were pre-poll studies, and April to 1st of June was the post-poll study. And to our utter surprise, there was a 20% decline for the BJP during the campaign period once the election process started. And therefore, we were trying to understand that something has gone terribly because there was 60% approval rates for the BJP and Prime Minister Modi during January to March. So certainly, till March, there was nothing very serious against the BJP or the Prime Minister so far as the people of Uttar Pradesh were concerned. But the same people have a 20% decline about BJP and Modi. So we inferred that something had seriously gone wrong during the process of campaign. And what we then found is that this charge of power was a major damaging issue for the BJP, because the BJP took it jokingly or lightly probably, but the opposition, you see, utilized this opportunity of charge of power for creating a narrative that they jolly well would have done with themes of power. Why do they want charge of power? And they want charge of power because they want to abolish the constitution and demolish the constitution and abolish reservation. And this narrative impacted a very strong and large segment of the people, because most of the OBCs thought that if the reservation is finished, then they are at loss, and there was a fear psychosis. And the Dalits thought they were also thinking that the Ambedkar's constitution should not be destroyed or demolished. So these two chunks which had moved to the BJP for quite some time, they retracted their steps back. And why could they do so? They could do so because there was a very clear-cut option of Congress and Samajwadi Party. There wasn't any other option except Congress and Samajwadi Party. And therefore, this chunk of the social bloc, they lock, stock and barrel moved to the Congress and the Samajwadi Party, and that make it terrible dent. And therefore, we were absolutely not surprised what's going to happen. And so far as the Ayodhya is concerned, Ayodhya has always been voting for, Samajwadi Party and the local constituencies around. And there was some anger in Ayodhya, especially because many people, their shops were demolished. Of course, they were paid compensation, but you know how the bureaucracy works and to get the compensation. So all that anger was also, that was a cumulative effect why Ayodhya wasn't an issue, but the Ayodhya seat was lost by the BJP.
But it also had an effect on the Prime Minister's constituency also. Were you able to get a sense of it, that it would affect a constituency of a VVIP, Professor Suri?
Are you talking about Ayodhya?
No, I'm talking about Banaras, Varanasi.
Okay. Yeah. But you see, Ayodhya, I think, is a kind of a symbol of a larger political process that has been underway in the country. And I think once Ayodhya temple was built and the controversy was resolved to a large extent and came to a closure, I think that would not have big impact on the electoral behavior. I think that's the reason why we see that the kind of forging unity around a particular religious identity will have only effect for a limited time, right? And you cannot expect that to continue for a very, very long time. And also, there are several other factors that play out in the electoral domain. It's not just one factor. So there are also the factors of caste identities, the regional identities, and the alliances. I think what happened in Benares again, the 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 vote for the BJP came down, or the prime ministerial for Narendra Modi, because of what was happening at the constituency level. I think all these factors, both the you know the decline of the impact of the Ayodhya factor, and as Dr. Verma was saying, that there were other factors about the fears that were aroused about the constitution, about the continuation of reservations, and about certain the kind of alliances that were forged at the state level. For example, we are told that our chapter on UP tells, Dr. Verma wrote that piece on Uttar Pradesh, that basically it was a decline in the vote among the among the Dalit voters that contributed to a substantial decline of the BJP vote in Uttar Pradesh. It was a kind of state level phenomenon that happened. I think there are state level factors and there are certain narratives, as Dr. Verma was saying, that were promoted or that were constructed during the time of election campaign that resulted in the fall of the vote for the BJP in Varanasi.
Okay. Dr. Verma, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu and Haryana. West Bengal, Tamil Nadu and Haryana. They behaved in a way in 2024 and very subsequently in assembly elections. I know I'm talking about a hindsight sort of a question because you have deciphered the mandate of 2024, but those states behaved very differently when it came to assembly elections. What do you call that in your language, in psephology, political science? How do you decipher this movement?
I think this is a very, very interesting question. And these states, they were quite enigmatic in 2026 elections or thereafter, whenever the elections happened over there. And I mean, everybody was surprised. For example, Tamil Nadu, you were talking about. But if you look at the Tamil Nadu tendency of too much focusing on the state identity, language issue, and regionalism, etc., you will find that the decline had already started in 2019. Because if you read the Tamil Nadu chapter, you will find that already the vote share of regional parties was showing a decline, a very substantial decline. Earlier, they used national parties together, regional parties together, they used to pull around 80 to 85% vote share over there. But in the 2019 election, you will find that the trend was already visible and their decline was they came up to 70%. So there was already a 50% decline for the ADMK and DMK combined together. And that's why when Vijay comes in earlier, the stage was actually being set for a non-rigid, not, of course, there was a Tamil identity, but he wasn't that communal, he wasn't that arrogant, he wasn't that anti-Hindu and all that. And that's why we could see that something very suddenly, of course, it would have gone to the AIDMK if the AIDMK would have been strong, Jayalalitha would have been there. But because after the decline of Jayalalitha, the AIDMK was actually on the decline. So the people understood they wanted to change Stalin, they wanted to change DMK, but they had no other option. In the meanwhile, Vijay's party comes in and captures the whole thing. And Tamil Nadu history, as you know very well, so very well, that the cine stars they have been the leading politicians in Tamil Nadu and some other states also. So that is one thing. But Ed, but the question that you raised is that that's why we call that there isn't any fixity between the state and the national electoral process. They are kaleidoscopic, there is a kaleidoscopic variation. Once you remove a kaleidoscope a little bit, you find a finite type of a different, but that is actually very different. So what's happening in West Bengal was, West Bengal is, is strange. 30 years for Congress, 36 years for CPM, 15 years for Mamata Banerjee. So the people of West Bengal seem to experiment with a particular ideology for a very long time probably, and now it's the turn of the right, and probably that's why I suspect that the right is going to stay for a very long time in Tamil Nadu, in West Bengal too. So whether it is Tamil Nadu or whether it is West Bengal or whether it is any other state, that's why the Indian national elections, they are very difficult to predict, and we should always be prepared for some, very surprise results. And one surprise result was Uttar Pradesh, another surprise result was Maharashtra, yet another surprise result was Haryana, and that made a lot of difference for the incumbent government at the national level. So
Absolutely.
that's
Absolutely, sir. But there was also another surprise, though that surprise has also been like reset by the recent victory of Bharatiya Janata Party. Professor Suri, that is Northeast. In some constituencies, the Congress candidate won by more than 10 lakh votes. But then again, BJP has swept to power. So, keeping in mind 2024, are we here to say that Northeast, which was part and parcel of the Congress-led system, has become part of a BJP-led system? It is not an exception to national politics. India's Northeast.
Yeah. I think Northeast presents as a major riddle in Indian politics. It's culturally very diverse. Although we call it the Northeast, Northeast itself is an agglomeration of many peoples in terms of ethnicity, in terms of religion, in terms of even political affiliation. So for a long time, we thought that Northeast was different from what we call the mainland India. But as you rightly observed, that I think Northeast is also moving along now with the rest of India. In that sense, Northeast electoral system is getting, in a way, less and less regional and more national. I think that's the broad tendency, whether it is BJP or earlier it was Congress, or now the competition is primarily between the BJP and the Congress, with some regional parties still playing some significant role in some states. But broadly, the electoral competition is now between BJP and its allies and Congress and its allies. So we have what today in the Northeast, a kind of a bi-party or binodal party system that we saw in rest of India emerging some 20 years ago. I think increasingly the Northeast we see is a kind of replicating a political process that we saw all over India for the last 20 years.
Dr. Verma, the chapter says, which I'm very keen to understand from you, though written by Mr. Satpathy, 15th, Odisha, the BJP swings a surprise. Was it in making because the vote of the Congress party was like stagnant at a single digit for last 15 years, and it was creating a space for an for a challenger. Why did that shift happen? Because Odisha played a pivotal role in buffering BJP, or else BJP would have been in real hot waters.
Very true, Kartikeya. Odisha was really like Uttar Pradesh. It was a surprise to me also, because Odisha had a long history of where a regional party was entrenched for a very long time. And but you see, Kartikeya, in any state, in any political system, there are things which people keep on tolerating and tolerating and tolerating, like in West Bengal, like in Odisha. And when, जैसे कहते हैं ना कि पानी ऊपर सर के ऊपर से बह रहा है, so when it becomes absolutely intolerable, then people of India have a tendency to react in a very, united way. The way Bengal people reacted, the way Odisha people reacted was unbelievable. Nobody thought that such a thing would happen. And that's why when there is a rejection of an incumbent government lock, stock and barrel, you are forced to think of the deeper reasons why there was such a, homogenization of the voting behavior of the people, because they threw entire government which was, entrenched there for a very long time, whether it be Bengal or whether it be, of course, Tamil Nadu was on the two elections on peak. But this was a long case, 3 elections in West Bengal and so many elections in Odisha. So the thing was that ultimately the chief minister was getting distanced from the people. Some people have captured the entire administration, and not only administration but also the political decision-making process. And that you know very well, more than me probably.
Mr.
It had
Pandey.
appeared so
Yes,
much,
yes.
appeared so much in the national media and all. So all those things people were tolerating, and you know what happens when such a one person becomes politically and administratively dominant, then lot many aberrations, lot many bad tendencies, they become writ large, and they become so writ large, nobody can ignore that. And that's what's happening in Odisha. That in Odisha, the of course, I would not say that it only happened because of those tendencies. The BJP, like in Bengal, if you remember, Bengal from 400 shakhas, they have reached to 5,000 shakhas. So the RSS was also working over there. The same was happening in Odisha. In Odisha also, the BJP cadre, the RSS cadre were working very hard. So the organizational, penetration was also there in both West Bengal and Odisha. Everywhere that penetration was there, and that penetration was lacking in Uttar Pradesh because of that Nadda statement, if you remember, that we don't need the BJP, we are the largest party in the world. So all that and that was very easily, manipulated by Congress and Akhilesh over here, and that's why the RSS worker became indolent here in Uttar Pradesh, and the BJP had to suffer a lot. But there the thing was differently going on, and that's why the BJP's hard work, the corruption entrenched in the Odisha administration and political domains, the outsourcing of decision-making process to a bureaucrat, all those things the people were now not ready to tolerate, and that's why they were the complete.
Dr. Verma, tell me one thing. Last 2024 election was something in which the civilizational state and India being union of state was part and parcel of the language. What did you, in the course of writing this book, discover? Is India a civilizational state, or is it a union of states? What did you discover when you were compiling the entire data, sir?
Kartikeya, very difficult to say either our position. We cannot take a binary this or that. It's actually a mix of both. And of course, we cannot completely reject one and the other. And that's why we say that we are taking a middle position. We are neither accepting this nor accepting that. We are not taking sides with any established, framework of analyzing the Lok Sabha elections, etc. And that's why we call mutual embeddedness. It wasn't civilizational also, and it was that also. So that there was an amalgamation of the union of which we have clearly stated in our book. If you read the book, we have clearly stated in our book that the elections were, happening as a union of India and not as a, sporadic states. So the civilization part was there, that is the overarching thing. But at the same time, there was a state assertion also, and we respect all that. And probably you will, if you read the book, had time to read the book, you will realize that our approach was to make the book, number one, bereft of any, what we call academic bulldozing, if I say. There wasn't any academic bulldozing from the editor's side. And there the book stands sharply in contradiction to the previous volumes that we have been studying, that usually the editors develop a framework and then they try to, they warrant each and every author to abide by that framework and write their chapters accordingly. But thanks to Professor Suri and my other colleagues who is not able to join us, that we allowed the state writers, authors, complete freedom. And when all the essays were collected, then we could realize, then this framework was developed. This entire book is not a monolithic framework working over there, but it has evolved from the writings of the authors.
One last question for Professor Suri. Do you think that South is a barrier for Bharatiya Janata Party? Keeping in mind the sort of verdict that was thrown in 2024, and also keeping in mind that the BJP failed in Tamil Nadu elections also.
What's the question again, please? Can you go on?
Is South India a barrier for Bharatiya Janata Party?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's a barrier, but one thing becomes clear, that whereas BJP could expand in regions where it was not very strong before, for example, the question you were asking about Odisha, BJP could expand in Odisha, BJP could expand in West Bengal and in northeastern states, and it could also expand to, of course it was there in Maharashtra and Gujarat, but it could consolidate itself in these western states. Only in South, it is finding difficult to expand and to consolidate. I think it is facing some kind of difficulties in the sense that the narrative that the BJP has constructed over the years, somehow it is not able to use the word sell in South Indian states effectively, probably because the South Indian states, one, they are more secularized in the sense that there has been accommodation of multiple social groups in the structures of economic and political power. And also we have seen in terms of politics, there has been greater mobilization of the backward classes into politics over several decades, which did not happen in states like, say, Odisha or West Bengal or some other states where BJP could quickly expand. So actually in states like Kerala or Karnataka or Tamil Nadu, or even to a large extent in Andhra and Telangana, the backward classes of people, who one would call backward class in other states, they already have a substantial position in both economic and political structures of power. I think that in that sense, I'm talking of secularization of politics. I think that BJP requires a slightly different strategy if it wants to expand in the southern states.
Okay, I really run short of time. Maybe, we could have had a longer discussion on it, but congratulations to both of you for writing this Lok Sabha election India 2024 book. I'm really looking forward to read it in the detail, but 2024 was a surprise to many, sir. The results, the voting pattern, the way different states behaved, it revived, and sorry to use the word, almost a dead opposition in the country. So it not only gifted a stable government, but it also gave us a muscular opposition. So I would say that 2024 Lok Sabha election was indeed a good election for Indian democracy, in a way, a stable government and a an opposition also which was like negligible in 2014 and in a very poor shape in 2019. I wish you good luck, and
Absolutely. We agree with you.
and I thank both of you for sharing your thoughts on the book with me.